Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Speakly English podcast. The place where you can relax, listen, and improve your English with stories that matter. I'm your host, and today, we have a very special story for you. It's a true story about a man who searched for something very important, even in the darkest of times. It's a story about hope, about strength, and about finding a reason to keep going. This story is called A Man's Search for Meaning. We speak in slow, clear English, so you can listen, relax, and practice. Don't worry about understanding every single word. Just listen, and let the story guide you. Are you ready? Okay, let's begin. Our story starts in a beautiful city in Europe, many years ago. There was a man named Viktor. Viktor was a doctor, but not the kind who gives you medicine for a cough or a fever. Viktor was a doctor of the mind. He was what we call a psychiatrist. He helped people who felt lost, sad, or afraid. He would sit with them, listen to their problems, and try to understand what was happening inside their hearts and heads. Viktor loved his life. He had a wonderful wife, with a smile that could light up a room. He had parents who loved him. He had a cozy home and a job that he was passionate about. He had a big dream. He believed, with all his heart, that the most important thing in life is to find meaning. He believed that every person, in every situation, has a purpose. He thought that even when life is difficult, even when life is painful, there is always a reason to get up in the morning. He used to tell his patients, if you have a why to live, you can bear almost any how. But then, one day, everything changed. A great and terrible war came to the world. It was a time of fear and danger. The government in Viktor's country changed, and life became very hard for people like him and his family. One cold morning, soldiers came to his door. They told him and his family to pack one small bag. They had to leave their home, their beautiful, warm home, immediately. They were taken to a train station and pushed onto a long train. It was not a passenger train with seats. It was a train for cattle. It was dark, dirty, and crowded. There was no room to sit. People stood, squeezed together, holding onto their small bags and their families. No one knew where they were going. The only sounds were the crying of children and the heavy rumble of the train wheels on the tracks. People were terrified. They held each other, their faces pale with worry. The train traveled for a long time. Finally, it stopped with a loud screech. The doors were thrown open, and bright, cold light flooded in. Soldiers were shouting orders. Out! Everyone out! Fast! They had arrived at a camp. But this was not a normal camp. This was a place of hard labor. It was a prison. There were tall fences with sharp wire, watchtowers with guards, and rows of cold, gray buildings. From that moment, Viktor's life, and the lives of everyone on that train, was no longer their own. In this place, Viktor lost almost everything. He lost his beautiful home. He lost his important work. He lost his freedom. He was no longer Dr. Frankel. He was just a number, a prisoner. Most painfully of all, he was separated from his family. He never got to say a proper goodbye. One moment they were there, and the next, they were gone, taken in a different direction. He was completely, utterly alone. Life in the camp was a daily struggle to survive. Every day was the same terrible routine. The prisoners were woken up very early, while it was still dark. The air was freezing. They had to stand outside for hours, in thin clothes, as the guards counted them again and again. They were given a small piece of bread and a bowl of watery soup. That was all the food for the entire day. They were always hungry. Their stomachs ached with emptiness. Their bodies grew thin and weak. Then, they would march for miles to work. They dug in the frozen ground or moved heavy rocks. Their hands would crack and bleed from the cold. Their feet, wrapped in old pieces of cloth instead of shoes, would become sore and swollen. The guards would shout and hit anyone who moved too slowly. Many people in the camp lost hope. They would just sit and stare. They stopped caring if they were clean. They stopped caring about anything. Their eyes looked empty, like the lights inside them had gone out. They felt that life had no purpose anymore. They were just waiting to die. Viktor watched this happen. He saw strong people become weak. He saw kind people become cold. He saw them stop believing. And Viktor asked himself a question, a deep and difficult question. How can a person live in a place like this? How can anyone find a reason to keep going when everything is pain and suffering? Is there any meaning here? He remembered his old belief, the one he had told his patients. He remembered his idea that life always has meaning. But, how? How could life have meaning in this horrible place? He had to find the answer, not just for his patients this time, but for himself. So, Viktor began to watch. He became an observer, even as a prisoner himself. He looked closely at the other men. And he noticed something very important. It was a small thing, but it was powerful. He noticed that the men who survived, the men who kept their strength, were not always the strongest physically. The big, strong men sometimes gave up quickly. The ones who survived were the ones who had something inside them. They were the ones who still had hope. He saw one man share his tiny piece of bread with a friend who was sick. He saw another man use his last bit of energy to help a stranger stand up during the long march. He saw a man whisper to his friend about his children, about the memory of their laughter. He saw them remember love. These men, they had a reason to live. Their meaning might be small. It might be a memory. It might be love for a family they might never see again. It might be a dream for the future. But they had it. And that something was like a small fire inside them, keeping them warm when everything else was cold. Viktor realized something. The men who lost hope, the ones with the empty eyes, they were the ones who believed they had nothing left to live for. They had lost their why. He told himself, right there in the cold and the mud, I must not be like them. I must keep my why alive. I must keep my meaning. I must remember love. At night, lying on the hard wooden boards of his bunk, Viktor would close his eyes. He would picture his wife's face. He would imagine her smile. He would have conversations with her in his mind. He would tell her about his day. He would imagine her gentle voice. He didn't know if she was alive. He didn't know if he would ever see her again. But in his mind, she was real. She was with him. And that thought made him feel warm. It made him feel strong. It reminded him that he was still a human being, not just a prisoner. He still had love. They could not take that away. He learned the most important lesson of his life in that moment. They can take your clothes. They can take your home. They can take your freedom. They can take your family. They can even take your name. But there is one thing they can never, ever take. They cannot take away your ability to choose your own attitude. They cannot take away your ability to choose your own thoughts. You can still choose how you respond to your suffering. You can still choose hope. You can still choose meaning. Every day, he would repeat this to himself. My life still has a purpose. I am not just suffering for nothing. I am here for a reason. I will watch. I will learn. I will survive. During the long, painful walks, when his feet were bleeding and his body was screaming to stop, he would not think about the pain. Instead, he would use his mind. He would imagine himself standing in a warm, bright lecture hall in the future. He would imagine himself at a podium, looking at an audience of students and doctors. And he would imagine telling them this story. He would imagine teaching them what he was learning in this terrible place. One day, he would tell himself, I will be free. And when I am free, I will not be silent. I will tell the world what I have learned. I will help people understand that life always has meaning, even in suffering. This is my purpose. This is my meaning. This thought, this dream of a future lecture, gave him strength. It gave him a reason to put one foot in front of the other. It gave him a reason to live. He saw that meaning can be found in many ways. It can be found in a memory, like the face of someone you love. It can be found in a dream, like teaching others one day. It can be found in an act of kindness, like sharing your bread with someone who is suffering more than you. It can even be found in beauty. One morning, as they were marching to work, the sky was gray and heavy. Everyone was tired and miserable. But then, the sun began to rise over the hills in the distance. The gray clouds started to turn pink and orange and gold. It was a beautiful sunrise. For a few moments, everyone stopped. The guards even stopped shouting for a second. All the prisoners just looked up at the sky. No one spoke. They just watched the beauty. In that moment, they were not prisoners. They were just human beings, watching the sun. They were reminded that the world was still there. Beauty was still there. Life was still there. Viktor felt a warmth in his heart. He thought, even here, in this place of suffering, there is beauty. There is a moment of grace. This is meaning, too. The somber music slowly shifts to a more hopeful, uplifting tone. Finally, after years that felt like centuries, the war ended. One day, the guards were gone. The gates of the camp were opened. Viktor walked out. He was so thin. He was weak and sick. He was filled with a deep sadness for all he had lost. He later learned that his wife, his parents, and so many of his friends had not survived. He was truly alone in the world. Freedom felt strange and empty at first. He didn't know what to do. He just walked through the countryside, feeling lost. But slowly, he began to feel something else. He felt that he carried something important with him. He carried the lesson he had learned in the deepest darkness. He had learned, not just as an idea in a book, but as a truth in his very bones, that life always has meaning. Even in pain. Even in loss. Even in the darkest night. There is always meaning to be found. It might be in a memory, in a dream, in a small act of kindness, or in the beauty of a sunrise. But it is always there, waiting for us. Viktor knew what he had to do. He had to share this lesson. He had to help others. He went back to his work as a doctor, but now he had a new fire inside him. He wrote a book about his experiences, a small but powerful book called A Man's Search for Meaning. In it, he shared his discovery, that the primary drive in life is not pleasure, but the discovery and pursuit of what we find meaningful. He spent the rest of his life traveling the world, giving lectures, and helping people find their own why. He taught that we cannot always choose our circumstances, but we can always choose our attitude towards them. And in that choice, we find our freedom and our meaning. And that is the story of Viktor Frankl, a man who searched for meaning and found it in the most unlikely of places. His story teaches us a powerful lesson for our own lives, doesn't it? We all face difficult times. They might not be as extreme as his, but we all face moments of sadness, loss, or hardship. His life shows us that even when things feel hopeless, we have a superpower. We have the power to choose our thoughts. We can choose to look for the small moments of light, the small reasons to keep going. Think about it. What gives your life meaning? Is it a person you love? A dream you have? A small act of kindness you can do today? Hold on to that. That is your strength. Thank you so much for listening to the Speakly English podcast today. I hope Viktor's story touched your heart and helped you with your English practice. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more stories in slow, easy English. Share this video with a friend who is also learning English. And remember, even on a difficult day, there is always meaning to be found. Sometimes, you just have to look for the sunrise. I'm your host, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.